Hello and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. New South Wales Police Commissioner declares Bondi Beach attack that killed 12 individuals as a terrorist attack. Says Jewish community was targeted. Attackers used long arms. 29 individuals rushed to hospitals following Bondi Beach attack. 2 policemen among those injured. Police say they acted promptly, add this is not the time for retribution. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese issued statement after Bondi Beach shooting, says Australia stands with Jewish community. Also adds Australia will not submit to violence, hatred or division. Hong Kong's last major opposition party holds a final vote on Sunday on whether to disband as China ratchets up pressure on the city's remaining liberal voices in a years-long national security crackdown. Thailand has declared a curfew along parts of its southeastern coast as fighting with Cambodia spreads to coastal areas of a disputed border region. Two people are killed and 8 others critically wounded in a shooting at Brown University, according to local authorities. They say the gunman remains at large as the investigation continues. President Donald Trump warns of very serious retaliation after U.S. citizens are killed in an attack in Syria blamed on Islamic State. Trump says Syria's president is devastated by the attack and stresses Syrian forces are fighting alongside U.S. troops. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemns a horrific drone attack on Bangladeshi peacekeepers in Sudan that kills 6 and wounded 8 others. Guterres warned that such attacks may constitute war crimes and says those responsible must be held accountable. And viewers, let's start with the top focus here on World Report. New South Wales police have confirmed that 12 people were killed and 29 others, including a child, were rushed to hospital. The attack targeted the Jewish community during a Hanukkah event attended by more than 1,000 people. Authorities say that one gunman has been killed, while a second suspect remains in critical condition. Police also discovered and safely removed several improvised explosive devices from a nearby vehicle linked to the deceased attacker. New South Wales Premier Chris Minns described the attack as particularly shocking, noting that mass shootings are rare in Australia. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese confirmed the attack as an act of evil anti-Semitism and called it terrorism striking at the heart of the nation. Law enforcement continues to investigate the situation, urging the public to remain vigilant while security forces work to ensure the safety of all communities. Let's listen in.
Circumstances. Obviously, the fact that it's the first day of Hanukkah, the types of weapons, the offenders, some of the other items we found at the scene. As I said, we have found an improvised explosive device in a car which is linked to the deceased offender. So there's a range of circumstances, and obviously the Jewish community has a right to feel safe.
This attack was designed to target Sydney's Jewish community on the first day of Hanukkah. What should have been a night of peace and joy celebrated in that community with families and supporters has been shattered by this horrifying evil attack. Commissioner Lanyon will speak about the investigation, the police response, as well as the designation of this attack as a terrorism event in Sydney. I can assure the community it will be met with a massive, comprehensive police and public order response.
World leaders have now reacted to the attack, with Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghei calling the attack unacceptable and denouncing all acts of terrorism and killing. Meanwhile, King Charles III expressed being appalled by what he described as the most dreadful anti-Semitic terrorist attack on Jewish people, offering condolences to the victims and their families. And joining me in this discussion is Ali Mohammed Abushbak, who's a Middle East researcher, joins us live from Cairo. Well, thank you, Ali, for joining me here at NewsX World. Now we're getting some inputs that suggest that the attacker was studying in Islamabad before coming to Sydney. How do you react to that development? The attacker is said to be identified as one Naveed Akram. That's as per the Australian media reports. The official statements have not yet come in, but Australian media have reported the attacker to be this 24-year-old student who was earlier studying at Hamdard at Islamabad before he came to the Queen's University.
Thank you for having me. Things is on the ground. It's up to now. It's not clear the identity of the attacker. Either he's belongs to Muslim area or he's from Australia itself. So the thing is, this lone wolf attack, it's one of the very difficult for expectation from the securities and intelligence service to identify the time or to identify also the attack itself when it will be happen or committed. So that's a big challenge for the security and for the authority to identify it. But here it's worth mentioning that most of the international community, they are criticizing and also condemning the attack, including Iran. In Israeli media, they are divided in addressing this attack to the two divisions. One of them, the Israeli settlement media outlets, they are putting allegation against Hezbollah. They consider it as one of the mastermind behind the attack as a retaliation of killing Hezbollah commander Ali Tabtabai last week, and they consider it as one of the Hezbollah's operation against Israel outside Lebanon, because they consider it Hezbollah doesn't want to open a fight or open a war in Lebanese area, so they are going throughout or abroad attack to Israelis or Jewish area. So also one of the most moderated media outlets in Israel, Haaretz, according to them, they consider it, they accused Iran one of the mastermind of the behind the attack, and they consider it as one of the strategic of Iran to attack Jewish area or Jewish people in approach after the war or 11-day wars between Iran and Israel. That time Israel have been killed several of Iranian nuclear weapon. In this atmosphere also, Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government putting the allegation against the Australian government. That's also the relationship between Israel and Australian government have been impacted during the September 2025 when Australia have been recognized the Palestinian statehood during the wave of recognition of Palestinian statehood in United Nations. So this atmosphere putting several of a question about the relation between Israel and Australia. And here also Benjamin Netanyahu, he accused that the anti-Semitism has been disseminated among the Australian community. Also worth mentioning that in August 2025, Palestinian Australia have been assaulted by the anti-immigration civilians in Australia. So that putting several of the question about the future of the either Palestinian or Jewish in Australia. But with regard to your question about the relation between the attacker, if he was in Islamabad or no, so there is no doubt Islamabad one of a terrorist house in the region. We have seen Osama bin Laden, he was they covered his places, and during his assassination, he was in Pakistan. Here, it's a very difficult also it's a very complicated to analyze who's behind this attack, but also Australia have been a theater for several of attack either against pro-Palestine or pro-Israel. But the conclusion here, it's this condemned attack. It shouldn't, I mean, even Iran have been condemned this attack because civilians have a no. I mean, they did nothing. I mean, they didn't commit any sin to be attacked like what we have seen, and this is one of the brutal of terrorists. So here, I guess we have seen a several also lone wolf attack in Western country or
All right, Ali,
in
well, the identity of the attacker is yet to be announced officially, so we will be waiting for that. But how do you see the criticism that's being mounting on Anthony Albanese as far as an anti-Semitic sentiment that's brewing in Australia after this latest anti-Zionist attack?
This is one of the Israelis' strategic to accuse everyone about anti-Semitism, about also anti-Zionist. This is one of the strategic weapon for the Israel to obtain the audience and the international opinion. But I guess now in this age, in the social media age, this kind of propaganda, it will not work. And there is, as you mentioned, the United Nations Human Rights official rapporteur Francisca Albanese have been also accused one of the figure of against the Israel or the anti-Semitism in Western. But here, if you want to criticize the Israelis' war crime, Israel always accuse the other or anyone putting the finger against Israel or criticize the Israelis' behavior on the ground as anti-Semitism, and they are considered they are enemy. So this is, I guess, it's such a kind of ridiculous weapon Israel use it, and propaganda Israel use it continuously, because also several of Australian local media, they consider several of hate speech have been disseminated during the war in Gaza and up to now among the immigrator. And it's worth mentioning that the Muslim immigrator in Australia, it's a high community and it's a large community, also the Jewish community. But we can't put the the religious in such kind of angle or such kind of stereotyping to make the people more emotional about the other. Should be more realistic and ideal. Should be more realistic on the ground.
All right.
This lone. Yeah.
All right. Well, for now, thank you, Ali, for speaking to us in this discussion, and we now have some more information coming in, viewers. Now, this is in regard to the Brown shooting incident. Providence police have detained a person of interest in connection with the Delhi shooting. 2 students are confirmed dead and 9 others injured, with several in critical condition. Officials warned the toll could rise. The shooting happened near the Barris and Hawley building during exams on Saturday at 4 p.m. EST. A shelter-in-place order for the campus has been lifted, though parts of Brown remain restricted as officers secure the scene. Let's listen into what the officials have said.
Are able to report that we have detained a person of interest involved in yesterday's shooting. Colonel Perez will speak in a minute about that update. Second, I want to let the Providence community know that effective immediately, we are lifting the shelter in place for Brown and the related area. Campus communications pushed out an update to that effect a little while ago, and the City of Providence, through our official channels, is making that update now. Again, the shelter in place has been lifted for the city of Providence. Finally, I'll note on just an update on the individuals who are recovering at Rhode Island Hospital. There remain 7 individuals in stable condition, 1 in critical but stable condition, and 1 has been discharged. Those are the 9 individuals.
So yes, the mayor stated we have detained someone of interest, but I respect and to protect the integrity of the investigation, I would only be limited in my details. The next process for us is what we do best, and our detectives is to coordinate with the prosecutors, to collect evidence, to conduct interviews, and then from there, we'll be able to, when it's appropriate and accurate, to share more details with you all.
Meanwhile, Brown University has cancelled all remaining fall 2025 classes, exams and assignments. Students are free to leave with on-campus support available for those who stay. More than 400 law enforcement personnel were deployed as the search continues for the suspect described as a male dressed in black. US President Donald Trump has been briefed on the incident. And now I'd request Matthew Wadham, who's an American journalist and author, to join us into the incident here.
Hi there.
Hi, Matthew. Thank you for joining us once again here at NewsX World. Matthew, firstly, what's your first reaction to the incident, given that America has had now 389 mass shootings, and not the first one, certainly at a university campus, but a first at a private Ivy League college?
Well, I don't know where that number 389 mass shootings comes from, but I question if you mean in 2025, that sounds like an absurd figure. And I don't know when
not in just 1 year, in some time there have been several reports indicating that figure.
Over what period of time? I don't know what it is.
I'll come back to you on the period, but yeah, do go on with your answer.
But yeah, okay. So anyway, I question whether the number is that high, but yeah, this is unfortunate that and people keep getting attacked in schools across America because they are viewed as easy targets for psychologically unstable people who want to become famous. They like to engage in these mass shootings, and there are very few places where they feel safer than in gun-free zones where people are not allowed to carry guns to protect themselves. And the campus of Brown University, which is in Providence, Rhode Island, is a gun-free zone, and so people cannot carry guns to protect themselves. So I'm not sure that we know the motives of the shooter yet. This happened, I thought, in an engineering building on Saturday while exams were underway.
Yeah.
And they have detained a person of interest, but I'm not sure where the investigation is beyond that.
What about the gun laws? Now, certain laws also allow individuals to make weapons for personal protection. Do you think there's a need to tighten the liberal gun laws, although we are happy to know that hearings are underway in the courts on those discussions?
Well, guns are one of the most regulated consumer goods in the United States already, apart from, banking services, financial services. I don't think we need more laws. If there are people who want to commit crimes with guns, they're still going to do it. And the thing is, when you keep passing more laws to make it more difficult for people to get guns, you make it more difficult for people to defend themselves with guns. There are already plenty of laws in place, especially in a state like Rhode Island, which is already quite hostile to Second Amendment gun rights. There's plenty of laws in place to prevent this kind of thing, but you can't prevent all crimes, and America's a free country, and some people are going to commit crimes, and you can't anticipate all of them, and you can't prevent them. It would be nice if universities had proper protection, armed guards to protect their students. During the exam period, but a lot of them don't seem to take the problem very seriously.
All right. Well, thank you for your comment there, Matthew.
Okay.
Moving on, viewers, to news from Israel. Israel's Supreme Court has ruled against a government move to oust Attorney General Gali Baharav-Miara, who has clashed with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition over the legality of its policies. The court stated that the established process for dismissing an Attorney General, which requires consultation with the professional public committee, could not be bypassed, making the cabinet's no confidence vote null and void. Baharav-Miara, appointed by the previous government, has been a key figure in opposing the government's controversial judicial overhaul plans, which critics argue threaten democratic checks and balances. Despite procedural flaws in the government's attempt to remove her, the ruling confirms her continued lawful position in office. All right, viewers, let's now Sasha, who I now have Sasha Mashta, a political commentator, joining us live from Tel Aviv in this discussion here. Sasha, Israeli Supreme Court has ruled against the government's dismissal of its Attorney General. How do you validate the ruling?
This is another chapter in the ongoing fight between the Israeli judiciary and the ruling coalition. This goes back to prior to the October 7th war, where Netanyahu started a judicial reform process headed by Judicial Justice Minister Yariv Levin. Critics found that it was actually harming Israeli checks and balances and feared that it could be the end of democracy, while the governing coalition felt that none of their actions could pass because of the judiciary system. So we have two sides that are completely convinced that this is the way forward, and they're clashing on this issue, and this is another chapter in this. The government is not going to give up on ousting the Attorney General. There are more fringe parts of the coalition that insist that this is the only way forward. And there are other voices, more pragmatic voices in the coalition, but mostly in the center of Israeli politics, that are saying that Israel cannot afford the division that led to October 7th. And any action that would oust Attorney General, now especially before elections, would definitely be met with very much backlash and could be dangerous. We would probably see an escalation than what we saw in the streets of Israel prior to October 7th. And my hope is that this will be settled in a way that does not involve drastic measures by either side. And what Israel needs now more than ever is the unity of its people, and especially responsible leadership.
All right, Sasha, do stay on with us. There's some more news that I'd like your opinion on. Viewers, let's tell you once again that the Israeli military has confirmed that its forces killed a senior Hamas militant in the strike in the Gaza Strip. According to a joint statement by Israel Defense Forces and the Shin Bet Security Agency, the strikes targeted Arad Saad, who was the head of the weapons production headquarters in Hamas's military wing. The Israeli military claims that Saad was directly responsible for violations of the ceasefire agreement by Hamas in recent months, accusing him of leading the continued production of weapons during the ceasefire. Let's have Sasha back into the discussion here. Sasha, Hamas has now confirmed the death of its top Gaza military leader in the Israeli strike. How is this going to affect its cause in the war?
First of all, Israel has eliminated arch-terrorist Saad, that was not only one of the senior Hamas officials and the terrorists, but also leading the rearming of Hamas. He was responsible for Hamas's continued violations by refusing to disarm and by building up their arsenal and rebuilding their facilities to launch another October 7th in violation of the ceasefire deal. I remind the viewers that Israel is now preparing to reach phase 2. All the mediators are also moving to phase 2, despite one body still in Gaza, which is a totally separate issue. But the main problem is that Hamas is refusing to accept what they had already signed off on, which is their disarmament. So Israel needs to take actions to prevent a situation where phase 2 will be scrapped completely because Hamas will be too strong and nobody will be willing to fight them. So these are the same actions that Israel is taking to enforce the ceasefire since it began. Any violation on behalf of Hamas and any efforts to launch further attacks and rebuild is going to be met with force, and it's going to be met with enforcement of the ceasefire. And this is very much in coordination with the United States. I'm not sure if they knew prior to this strike, but it's very much in coordination that Hamas must disarm and that they must leave Gaza. And we hope that this is one step further.
All right. Well, thank you for your comment and for speaking to us for now, Sasha. And with that, viewers, let's move on to some news now coming in from Myanmar. Military government has hit back at growing international criticism of its planned election, calling the vote a national matter, not an international one. The junta, which seized power in a 2021 coup, says phased polling will begin on 28th December, promising a return to multi-party democracy and an end to fighting. But the UN, Britain and Thailand say the election will be neither free nor fair, while democracy monitors call it an attempt to rebrand military rule. Junta spokesman Zormin Thun said critics are free to speak, but the military will proceed with its plans. He also hinted that junta chief Min Aung Hlaing could take a leadership role after the vote, citing his experience in state duties. Meanwhile, rebel groups have vowed to block the election in areas they control as the military tightens laws and cracks down on dissent. Let's listen in.
နောက်တစ်ခုကတော့ရွေးကောက်ပွဲကမြန်မာနိုင်ငံအတွက်လှုပ်တာလေကျွန်တော်မြန်မာပြည်သူလူထုအတွက်လှုပ်တာရွေးကောက်ပွဲကနိုင်ငံတကာအတွက်လှုပ်ပေးတာမှမဟုတ်တာမြန်မာနိုင်ငံရှိတယ်အဲ့တော့အပြစ်တင်နေတဲ့သူတွေကအပြစ်တင်နိုင်ပါတယ်နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့အနေနဲ့ကတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ရဲ့မူလရည်မှန်းချက်ဖြစ်တဲ့ဒါပါတီစုံဒီမိုကရေစီစနစ်ကိုပြန်သွားနိုင်ရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့ဆောင်ရွက်သွားပါမယ်ဒီမိုကရေစီနဲ့
That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for all breaking news updates.